It's about 5 o'clock in the evening, and it's a four-way stop, and I'm facing north, just south of the intersection. And all of a sudden, this lady runs a stop sign right in front of me. I'm the only living thing within 200 feet of the intersection. Nobody else is there. And I said, what on earth could she be thinking? And I look inside her car, and I don't know if you ladies have had maybe 2, 3, 12, 13 kids. Yeah. No matter how many you have, it feels like 12 or 13, right? So my wife had 5, and I told her, I don't know why you keep having all those dang kids. Anyway, I told her to cut it out too, and she wouldn't. And so this lady looks over at me, and I see inside her car, like, it looks like the Tasmanian devil. Just whirly-derby, just, you know, arms and legs and hands and feet and kids flying everywhere. And the car was a old Datsun compact station wagon, and it was old. I mean, really old. And it wasn't, seriously, it wasn't worth $300. And she looks over at me, and she kind of goes like this, and she looks over at me, throws her arms up in the air as if to say, what else could go wrong today? Because what I surmised real quickly is that her kids were giving her so much trouble. She was trying to settle them down, and she lost track of where she was on the road, went through the stop sign, looks over at me, and immediately pulls over. So, you know, and so I get up to the car, and she already has her license and registration out the window, kind of like this. And this lady completely and entirely changed my life. Never said one word to me. Didn't say, oh, Officer Mack, please don't write me a ticket. You wouldn't want to write your mom a ticket for taking care of all your kids. How many kids did your mom have? And 6. But then, and she didn't play the wife card. You wouldn't want to write your wife a ticket for taking care of all your kids, you know. Doesn't say a word. This lady is really, really having a bad day. And she's just staring through the windshield of her car. She's ignoring her kids who are still fighting and crying and messing around. And I think there was about 4 kids. And I just start writing the ticket. I clap my hands and say, man, this is going to be easy. She's not even crying. She's not even fighting. Not doing anything to get out of the ticket. So this is going to be easy for me. I'm going to get another slash mark on my DAR, and this might be the day I set that record, you know, for writing tickets. And she's going to help me. And so I just start writing the ticket. And at the end of the ticket, the officer has to sign his name and serial number, which I did. And that's when it all starts to happen. Again, this lady never said a word to me. But I paused for a moment, and I looked down at this depressed woman. And it was obvious she couldn't have afforded this ticket if it was a $5 ticket. And I looked down at her snotty-nosed kids, and I looked down at her cruddy old car, and then I looked at me. It was the most penetrating gaze I'd ever felt in my life. And I asked myself a couple of questions. I said, Mac, is there anything you're doing here that's helping this family? You know, are you serving anybody? Are you protecting anybody? Are you helping anybody? Maybe a real servant would have said something like, ma'am, look, I know you didn't mean to run the stop sign. I know your kids were giving you a lot of hassle. Why don't you just get out of the car with all your kids and go over to the elementary school there and let them play on the playground for a little bit. Let them get some of that Tasmanian energy out of their system, you know? And then in 15 or 20 minutes, get back in the car and go about your business. I said, but, you know, I'm glad you didn't hurt anybody. You ran into a stop sign. If a kid had been in a crosswalk, you may have killed somebody. But I know it was a complete accident, and finding her $39 that she doesn't have isn't going to help. But what I did as a servant there could have. Oh, no. No, I'm not thinking that smart. But now the thinking process is really hitting me and hitting me hard. And I said, is there anything you're doing here that's making this a better place to live? No. And is there anything you're doing here that's bringing honor to the badge you wear on your chest? Well, I knew the answers to all those questions were negative. And now I'm more depressed than she is. And I mean, it's really affected me. I said, why am I doing this then? You know, and I didn't make any excuses like, hey, look, poor people get in accidents too. What are you supposed to do? Just write rich people tickets? You know, ones can afford it? No, she needs to learn a lesson. Hey, learning a lesson and writing a ticket are two different things. Okay? And gouging people with tickets is another thing. And so now, I hand her back her license and registration, and I walk away. And I don't say a word to her. You see, if I had given her this Barney Fife thing, like, well, ma'am, this is your lucky day. And I'm going to cut you some slack. Aren't I a great guy? You see, if she had tried to thank me for anything right then, it would have only exacerbated my shame. And I couldn't have taken any more of, you know, the big cop thing. And so I broke policy, maybe even broke a law. I'm not sure if it was a law. But after you write a ticket, you can't tear them up. You can't get rid of them. You have to go to a judge and get it dismissed. And the sergeants usually keep pretty good track of the inventory on tickets. And we take out 25 at a time. Well, my sergeant never looked at these tickets, and I never got in trouble, but I went back to the police station and tore it up and threw it in the trash can in the briefing room. And then the rest of the shift, this was swing shift, and swing shift finishes at 11 o'clock, and I still had about 6 hours. And I just kind of, you know, if I had a call, I still took a call, and if I went, you know, if I had a family fight, I went on the call. If an officer needed backup, I went. But I'm not writing any more tickets, and I'm wondering the rest of the night why I'm a cop. What am I doing here? What's all this for? Will I write 100 tickets tomorrow and feel better about my job and better about myself? And will I make that a better place? Will we have a better place to live then? Will they have fewer accidents if I write 150 tickets tomorrow? And so I decided that I was going to start over. I'm starting over. Would any of you like to tell me how I do that? I've already been a cop 3.5 years, and now I'm going to start over. How do you start over? Well, I didn't know. All I know is I'm looking for something, and I've got to start over. The next day, briefing's at 2:30. I come into work about 2:15. Patrol shift starts at 3. I'm wandering around the police station, and then I start wandering around the city complex. And I walk into the city clerk's office. What am I doing here? What would I find there? And then I asked something. To this day, I don't know why I asked it. Because this was never a source of conversation for me and my family or my friends or other cops by the water cooler, anything. This had never been a topic of conversation. But I blurted it out to the city clerk. And I said, when I started as a cop here, did I take an oath of office? Oath of office? What's that? That's just a little ceremony you go through when you get your badge pinned on you after the academy. And she goes, yeah, you did. And before I could ask, she got into my personnel file and burned me a copy. We signed it. I signed it in March of 1979. Man, I was a young guy back then. I did not remember even taking this oath or signing it. And I looked at it, and I decided that I'm going to have to quit my job. So I'm starting over, huh? I'm quitting. I'm taking off my Sam Brown, and I took off the badge off my uniform, and I'm walking to the police side of the building and going to go into the chief's office, and I'm not giving him 2 weeks' notice. I'm telling him, I'm sorry, I can't do this job anymore, and I'm leaving. I'm going to go home. And as I was crossing from the city side over to the police side in the lobby, I imagine going home and talking to the pretty little blonde girl that I married a few years before that and telling her I just quit my job. And so I'm having this in my mind, my conversation with my wife. And it goes like this. So she goes, let me see if I got this straight, Mac. You're a liar and a hypocrite, so naturally you quit your job. Hello? So you quit your job. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry. She goes, so we can't pay our house payment, we can't pay the car payment, and we can't buy the kids new school clothes, all because you're a liar and a hypocrite. And I go, yeah, I think that's about it. Again, I'm sorry. And she goes, you couldn't just quit being a liar and a hypocrite and keep your job? You see how smart you ladies are? You see how smart you ladies are? You win the argument and you're not even there. You know? Man, I'm glad I married this little girl. And so I put my Sam Brown back on and put my badge back on. I go down to briefing and then I go home. What did I go home for? Because I didn't have one of these. Those little pocket constitutions that all you radical people have, probably. Believe in that constitution stuff. You know? What are you, crazy? Radical? Gosh. So my grandma Cora sold us the World Book Encyclopedia, so I'm getting this great big old book that says U.S. Constitution. So while I'm on duty for the next week, I'm reading the Constitution whenever I'm not busy, especially the Bill of Rights. Over and over. I memorized the Bill of Rights, or came close to it anyway. A set of principles that government can never violate. These are the rules that are basically the untouchables. They can't think about it, they can't talk about it, they can't even consider encroaching upon these 10 basic fundamental freedoms, ever. On February 28th, the very day the Brady Bill took effect, I hired my own lawyer out of Tucson, Arizona, who used to work with the NRA, who was certified with the Supreme Court, to work with the NRA lawyers. And on February 28, 1994, in federal district court, Sheriff Richard Mack filed a lawsuit against the federal government, the Clinton administration, from implementing the Brady Bill. Remember the threat of arrest? We also filed for an injunction against the federal government from arresting me. And we got it. So we got the injunction, we filed, and then Sheriff Prince from Montana filed, Sheriff Coog from Texas, and then a sheriff in Louisiana, a sheriff in Mississippi, a sheriff in Vermont, and a sheriff in Wyoming. Seven out of 3,100 sheriffs filed this lawsuit. And then Sheriff Prince and I ended up at the Supreme Court in December of 1996, because he and I were consolidated at the Ninth Circuit, where he and I lost. All of us won at the district court level except Sheriff Coog in Texas. How do you lose a gun rights state sovereignty case in Texas? I don't know. Must have been the only judge that was crazy. Anyway, he lost, but all the rest of us won. And then Sheriff Coog and Sheriff Romero from Louisiana made a huge comeback in the Fifth Circuit, which is in New Orleans. After we lost, Sheriff Prince and I lost in the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco. And my lawyer said that pretty much guarantees us a trip to the Supreme Court. And indeed, the Supreme Court granted certiorari, and here's two small town sheriffs from Montana and Arizona going to the United States Supreme Court and winning. And on June 27th, on June 27, 1997, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the Brady Bill indeed was unconstitutional. Now, most of you might wonder, well, then why do we still have the Brady Bill background check?